Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transformation Tales. I'm your host, Shanaz, and today we have an incredible guest joining us. She passionately and fearlessly chases her dreams through her business, creatively weaves a tapestry of food, fashion, and culture to share her origin with the world. Her love for vegan cuisine, sustainable fashion, and much, much more. Please welcome Nana Serwa Mancell, the founder and owner of Vegana Life. Over to Nana to take us through her story and her journey.
Hi, Shanaz. Thank you for this opportunity. I say with businesses like mine that are still quite young, the pleasure we get is often not yet financial, but is in recognition. So thank you very much. It's a great opportunity to be able to share my story.
Our
Yes,
pleasure
yeah.
as well.
So I started.
Please go on.
I started Vegana 3 years ago now. So I'm just on my third anniversary, and with another year in development, where I was working on the idea. And I feel at 3 years, you've just got me at the right positive point where I'm beginning to feel, yes, we can go ahead. Because I would say before this, every 6 months, I would hit a barrier of, oof, can I really do this? And
yes,
can I keep going? So your interview is very.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
I was. Should I just count? So yes. I've my career, which is a 30-year career, has been in PR and marketing. Straight after I finished university, I found myself with working with an international organisation that was linked to the Commonwealth organisation in the UK, and I worked between the Commonwealth and also working for Buckingham Palace. Wow. So I had 7 years of a very unusual job where I got to meet all the British royals and travel around the Commonwealth, and that was I always knew I wanted to work in development. International development. I'd always had a strong sense of social justice in terms of international politics and international relations. So I worked for a few years and then did a master's in international relations. And then after that, somehow my career continued in PR and marketing, but not in the original field of what I was interested in. So I worked happily and did some really wonderful jobs, but always had this sense that there was something that I wasn't fulfilling. And when my children were born, I became a pure freelance PR, and again did some great projects, working with some wonderful clients in the UAE, from various governments to royal families to wonderful brands. But there was always this sense that there was something that I should be doing. So after some years of freelancing, when my children were born, it suited me very much. I have now 3 teen boys. Okay. And then when they got to a certain age, I thought, I saw an ad for what I thought was my dream job, and I was delighted to see this ad, and I threw my everything in it. And I worked for the Emirates Literature Foundation for some years, because I'm an absolute book nerd. I love literature. So here I thought, in what on paper should have been my dream job, I was looking after media for all these famous authors that were being flown into Dubai for the various, sponsored by Emirates, the various Literature Foundation initiatives and the big festival. And I thought I was happy in my job. It was all going well. And then came the pandemic.
Okay.
And we had just finished a big festival with 200 authors. And I just knew that my job, as I knew it, was gone, kind of thing. So I had the pandemic because there was no travel. So it was like, oh, gosh, what now? And I kind of thought, well, what can I do? What do I like doing? And so I thought, I like to cook. And I cooked, I'd been cooking vegan food for friends without really, and vegetarian food, but without really being interested in why they were vegetarian or vegan. But whenever I had to cook for vegans or vegetarians, I always went back to our traditional Ghanaian food, because usually I cooked a lot. I always had people coming in and out of my house for various dinner parties. I was always known as, if you go to Nana's house, there's a lot of food. But I'd always a little bit looked down on my own African cuisine, and was more interested in perfecting my skills in other types of cuisines. Whenever it came to vegetarian food, I always thought, oh, I know, I'll make them, a version of West African or Ghanaian food, because that I know that when you cook it without meat, I can really make it flavorful.
Mm-hmm.
So came the pandemic, and I thought, almost as a cynical marketing idea, I chose to do a plant-based business. I didn't have a plant-based diet myself. I didn't know much about it. I just thought, with my kind of marketing knowledge, thought, what will stand out? So many F&B offerings in Dubai. What's missing? I thought, I know, plant-based West African. And what I didn't know is how much of a gift actually this was going to become for me. So as with anything, when you start it, you open your mind, you do your research. And within a few months, I found myself with almost a complete life change in finding a new cause. Initially, I thought, I don't have to be vegan myself, right? I will just do this business. But within about 6 months, I found myself fairly vegan, which it's now 4 years ago now. And I would say after my children, probably finding veganism is probably I would say the biggest gift life has given me. And it brought me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such an interesting
It brought me back. Yeah, go carry on.
No, I'm saying such an interesting story, and the pandemic did stir a lot for a lot of people. Yeah, I always say the pandemic, I think, stirred our soul, and that's where I know a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, who started their very unique journey as well. And such a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Nana, could you take us a little bit more back to your roots and tell our listeners about where you are from and why that little that connection that you wanted to bring to the world with your food, with the culture of your origin.
Yes, and where I'm from and my journey here is very much part of my business, because I come from Ghana, and both my mother and my grandmother were very much career women. Actually, my grandmother started a school to teach women how to monetize through cooking and sewing in 1945. And by the time she died in the 90s, her school that started off with 6 girls under a tree was a 1,000-woman institute.
Amazing! Wow.
And she had traveled around the world then. So before we even used the words empowering or even words like monetizing, my grandmother had been doing this in very much the field that I was doing this. So she built this school, which was actually to help women from I'm privileged to come from a wealthier African background than a lot of people. So she built this school. So somebody like me, I was never intended to go to my grandma's school. So I'd never thought that journey was part of my journey. And I found I'm back in the path that she laid. So I was born and brought up in Ghana, but educated in the UK. But my parents never left Ghana. And my mother is a lawyer and a diplomat. And they instilled in me a very, very strong sense of my West African identity. I find the word tribe weird, but if that's what I must use, I'm a Fanti, and we come from the coast. And the people from the coast of West Africa were the people who had the most dealings with the European explorers and colonialists. So the first Portuguese castle is built exactly where I'm from in 1493. This is very much part of my story, by the way.
Yeah.
So us Fantis had been dealing with the European travelers and all their various influences, including food and fabric that came to us. Let's say, if you imagine, it took the Europeans another 200 years to go from West Africa to South Africa. So that just shows you how much longer we were dealing with them. So I come from a family of independence fighters and fierce career women. So at the time I decided to be vegana, it was very much almost like I was letting the side down. I studied law and I should have continued in that kind of professional field.
Yeah.
So I was sent to school at quite a young age as a boarder in the UK. One of I think there's three other Black African girls in my school for the entire time I was there. And then on to university. So by the time I got to university is when I really found my passion for cooking, because I was an international student surrounded by all these people from different nationalities. And my first impression was, wow, I can learn to cook all their sorts of food as well. So whilst I was doing that, I realized I didn't know anything much about my own food. I knew how to eat it, but I didn't know anything much about how it was cooked. Both my mother had been not she would never have gone to the kitchen. She was a proper career woman. So I then started this journey of teaching myself how to cook Ghanaian food, and then also at the same time using it to express my African identity. So I became very much part of the African society in university and started, hosting big parties where I would cook and do fashion shows. But again, I forgot all this through my journey. So very early on, living in the UK, I worked for the Mayor of London for some years. Whenever I would entertain or do anything, I would cook people African food as a way of expressing my Africanness. And then this was all just in the background. I didn't think on it or reflect on it. I didn't see it as part of my cause in any way. It was just something I just didn't really think about much.
It all came back full circle.
So when I found myself starting,
yeah,
yes, I came back full circle. Yes, I'd been adapting our traditional recipes for international or foreign palates for a while, for all my life. So I knew exactly what I wanted to present. But even then, I wasn't fully proud of all our food. I was offering people what I thought would be nice looking food, or not really looking into the story of why we ate what we ate. And so Vegana has gifted me this ability to now really go back into my culture, look at where all this food came from and why it's good for us. And there's so much in that story. So for instance, our West African food then went with the slaves across the world to South and Southern America and to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And finding out all these stories about these things that I cook, that the same thing is maybe cooked in Brazil, but in a different way. So, it's been a gift in that way. Yeah. And then also working within Dubai, it's very much being a blessing, doing something quite so unusual. So like you noticing me. So I think if I hadn't been a vegan business or a plant-based business, cooking with a cause, I'm not quite sure that I would have had the success that I've had till now.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, because there is a whole kind of like a evolution going around healthy eating and vegan food, and we'll come to that in a bit. So yes, we did touch about Vegana Life, but if we could little bit elaborate more about the concept of Vegana Life that you've introduced.
So at the heart of, when I became a vegan, my reason was for the environment. And I still say that people shouldn't become vegans for diet or health reasons, because you will fail. Because the replacing, when you leave out the meat or you leave out the dairy, what you might replace it with is not necessarily healthy. And you'll also see it as something that's a sacrifice, where I see it as something that's very much a gift. So that especially with where I'm from Cape Coast, which I've named my fashion brand after, which is on the coast, obviously. And so far in West Africa, we've lost 30 to 40% of our coastline through environmental damage.
Wow.
And we know that food production food production is up to 1/3 of environmental damage.
It is.
We know that we're able to feed over 2 billion animals daily, yet we can't feed the 3 million starving children of the world.
True. Oh,
We
that's
know
an
that
interesting
65%,
perspective. Totally agree. Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we know that 65% of the world's farming land is given over to animal feed.
Wow.
And that's really what a big driver. So my reasons for being vegan aren't health. They started off being because of the environment.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm very much in the space where I've found the kind of the global. There's very much also is a Black vegan cause, and I found myself in this space. And for me now, it's about the rejection of harm. So if I'm expecting equality, then I must also not do harm to others. But that's not where I started, and I also don't promote Vegana as a vegan business. I just promote it as a West African food business. But at the heart of everything I do is a level of activism. At the heart of everything I do is what can I do to make me feel better about what I did for the world. So I know that I can't change behavior just through facts. Telling people that they must eat plant-based because it's good for them or because it's good for the planet isn't what's going to shift behavior. And I'm convinced of this.
Yeah.
What's going to shift the behavior is offering the tasty, delicious, good-looking alternatives. Then people might change. So at the heart of this is, how can I use my food to change? So coming along with this is, I've always been very, very interested and very invested in arts, music, culture, poetry in all my life, very much so. So in all of this, I'm aware that what moves your soul might make you reconsider what's in your mind. So coming with my food, I often have music and poetry and art. So when I do a food pop-up, it's very rarely just about the food.
Yes.
But it's also about all these things that come to stir your soul. Yeah. So in a sense, when I say Vegana life, it comes with that it's something for a whole lifestyle, not just what's on your plate.
This is so amazing. I mean, your work is absolutely amazing. So what challenges did you face as an entrepreneur?
Gosh, I face them. You face them at every turning. I mean, my favorite quote, which I don't get the word from Nelson Mandela, is when you climb to the top of the mountain, what you see then is the peaks of the other mountains. So the challenge, whenever I think I've understood a challenge, I would say but by far my biggest challenge is myself, without a doubt. Myself as a middle-aged mother of 3 children, going through menopause, not understanding the different things I have to reach for inside myself to succeed as an entrepreneur. Working for somebody else is very different. You make choices from a very different place. Working for myself, I make a lot of my choices purely based on instinct. Which when I was working as a PR consultant, there's no way I could tell my client, well, I turned down that project. I know it looked like there's money behind it, but I turned it down because my instincts weren't right.
Wow.
But working for myself, that's my main decision driver. So therefore, things like wellness, how I've slept, how I'm interacting, who I'm networking, then affects this decision-making process and the luck I generate for myself. So the biggest challenge is often myself and getting up to do a podcast, myself and getting up to go out and meet various people, myself and not just letting my staff run my stand, and not, I'm at the stage where I work with 2 wonderful cooks from Ghana, so they're capable of doing the cooking, but I have to motivate myself still to stay in that space. So my biggest challenge is my own self, my motivation, keeping the energy right,
Right.
not being quite often you will, because I'm a food brand that doesn't want to have a restaurant. So quite often I rely on another partner for doing a pop-up. So if it doesn't go right, myself and not taking pitfalls too seriously, because they will happen,
Yes.
right? But it's all about perception. So my biggest challenge by far is myself. Of course, most of us entrepreneurs that haven't began with funding is an issue.
Sure.
But I see it very much as a blessing that I didn't have funding for Vegana. I would have wasted a lot of money if somebody had given it to me. Now I'll have it. But if I'd got it at any stage before now, I would have wasted it. Yeah. So my
Interesting.
challenge
Yes.
is myself.
And so, what makes you go on?
What makes me? I would say I wouldn't know how to stop. Yeah. So and that in itself is an issue, right? So sometimes people come to me and say, "Are you taking a break?" And I kind of look at them in my head and like, what does that mean? Because sure, I might take a day off where because we work quite a lot at night, so I tend not to have anything to do with the world till midday. But that's not me taking a break. That's actually me recharging to be able to work,
Absolutely.
looking at recipes, reference points, what's going on in the world. So
And just creating and
how can
innovating.
so taking that. So anytime I take a break, you will invariably find me with a cooking book or looking at researching fabrics for my other business.
Wow.
So how can I say what I'm doing? It's totally within me. I do feel sorry for my younger child, and I think a lot of working mothers might relate to this. I do feel sorry for my younger child who didn't have this kind of driven. The older children didn't have this kind of driven career woman or mother as they were growing up. So I wouldn't know how to stop.
Okay. Great. So, so part of your love and passion also kind of transcends and goes towards fashion and ethnic fashion. And if you could please let our listeners know about your other work and your brand and how passionately you feel about sustainable fashion.
So to me, the two things are very much the same thing. Those of us that are creative, and if you're somebody who likes cooking, the process of the satisfaction, what urges you to create, it's almost the same whether I'm working on the design or cooking. The feeling, the work. So the cause and the ethos of both businesses is exactly the same as well, which is to reach into our authentic African, to send positive messages about Africa from this, to research our indigenous methods, whether it's food or fabric, and to present it to the world as a wonderful, colorful, fun option. So the other big polluter is, of course, fashion, which is actually fashion causes more damage to the world than I believe cars, aviation, and shipping all put together.
True. Yes.
And if I said before that my West Africa had lost 30% of its coastline. So my brand is called Cape Coast with a D. I come from a place called Cape Coast, which has the very famous Cape Coast Castle, which was one of the major slave castles that took for 300-400 years the slaves out of Africa and then to the world. So Cape Coast Castle is very well known internationally. So you'll find anybody that visits Africa, from Barack Obama to Bill Clinton to many people, will pay a point of pilgrimage to Cape Coast Castle. And I come from, my grandfather was born in the castle, so I come from I come from this. So I named my brand and added the D for deconstruction or decolonization. So in the same way as I also try to change the rules with both fashion and food. Cape Coast creates capes, so I very conveniently have a brand name that the end produce and the meaning is the same word. But so I create free flowing cover outfits, which I believe, especially for us women who have grown up in a Western tradition, you wear these very, very uncomfortable clothes all the time. And we're so brainwashed that we say to ourselves, it's comfortable. I said, well, if it was so comfortable, why don't you go home and put on a pencil skirt?
Right.
You don't. The first thing you do as a woman when you're wearing a pencil skirt is you undo it. You undo it and you put on a loose, flowy gown. So why don't we find a meeting point? And in most of the traditional cultures, we wear loose, flowy outfits, be it Asian, African, we all do in various styles. So Cape Coast is very much taking us back to that tradition of loose, flowy outfits. I started off just using African fabrics, but now I've moved on to using very traditional African fabrics. So coming from Ghana is kente cloth, which is now very much globally, it's a symbol of kind of Black emancipation. But kente, which I wore when I was getting married, and which has been born in West Africa now for hundreds of years, is still made in exactly the same way. Colonialism didn't interrupt the method of production of a lot of our fabrics. And all these methods of productions are very, very good for the planet. And fast fashion is the killer of a lot of things. So Cape Coast, I'm finding our old indigenous ways of fabric production, such as in West Africa as well, but a bit of a distance from where I'm from, is Mali, where they make Mali mud cloth, which is called bogalan. Each piece makes 2 months to make. It's dyed with tree bark and leaves and flowers, and each piece is unique. So till now with Cape Coast, each piece I make is unique, made with handmade fabrics. So essentially you're buying something that's very precious, that's just for you. And the idea is that you keep it and you pass it down through generations. And I intentionally designed them to be able to be turned like inside out, or in the other way around, so that they can be both short sleeves and long sleeves. And when my children were born, I went off and studied. I don't know why. I've always been interested in fashion, and how I look has always been a big thing. So when my children were born, I spent some... Pardon?
And it's so important to look well because you feel
very, very much. But I always think some of us are more interested than others, so I've always been completely obsessed. And when I was working, I would know what I was going to wear for the next month.
Oh, wow. That stretches a bit. Okay. Lovely.
Yes.
Great.
So then when I went into the kitchen, very much as somebody who's a pen chef still at this stage 4 years ago, when I went into the kitchen, in all my, before I started the business, I'd already embraced my Africanness and started wearing bright African fabric. So I went into the kitchen. They said, "Oh, but you have to put on a hairnet now." And I said, "A hairnet?" I couldn't imagine doing something quite so ugly to myself. So I rushed off to my car and
you picked up your fabric.
I had it was actually a dress. An African fabric that I had, that I was taking to the tailor. So I wrapped that around my head very much as I'm doing now. And I went back into the kitchen, and the chef who was training me did look at me, but there was nothing you could say because your ears have to be totally covered.
How creative.
Yeah. So there I stood there. So then in every day then I wanted to wear a different color. And then, of course, the chef's jacket is also white, and I'm not the tidiest chef, messing myself up all the time. And because I was a one-woman businessman doing everything from the marketing, the cooking, quite often when I had a meeting with somebody in the kitchen, I then realized that I would just take off my chef's jacket, and I started making long capes from the matching head gear so that
Wow.
I would look fabulous instantly, because I was also delivering my own food when I first started.
Mhm.
So just drive out of the kitchen, I would take my jacket off and put on my long
Amazing.
gown. And I knew that if I wore my long, brightly colored gown to deliver food, whatever it is, I'll make some kind of impression.
Lovely.
Um, And then, of course, I started making more and more of these, and then started gifting them to my friends. And then it gradually grew
Business.
into its own business.
Mhm.
But the connection between the two is that I, what you put on your body and what you put in your mouth are two things that most of us have control over.
Yeah.
So to be a better person, these two spaces are where most of us can make a difference. And they also happen to be the two most damaging industries to the environment.
Yes.
So it was almost like this cause that I had already found myself on. When I started the food, I realized that I was very motivated by the environmental activism side. Once I found the fashion as well, it was like, oh, this is the two absolutely go
And
hand in hand and go
yes,
side by side. I
agree.
don't run the two businesses together.
Mhm.
And then came Soul Sundays is where the two come together, which is my marketing, which is my monthly market.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely amazing. You have such a unique perspective on everything, and we just love talking to you. So, what is a day in the life of Nana? I know it must be very chaotic and busy, but the actual day in the life of Nana is what our listeners would want to hear.
I have one of those why I'm driven, or I'm quite happy in the entrepreneur space, is that I'm not somebody who's ever enjoyed routine. And I look at my own children, because I have three children, and a lot of the things and cliches that people say that you can train somebody, or that I'm like, I'm not sure that worked with me. I spent 8 years of my life in boarding schools,
Right.
and
Wow.
after,
Yeah.
after 8 years, I'm being forced to make my bed. And after 8 years, it still doesn't come naturally to me to get up and make my bed. So,
Okay.
so and oh, for instance, I'm somebody who quite likes things to be different, and I'm looking for different challenges. So that's a typical. So there's not essentially any such thing as a typical day. And also because my business have a fairly new, and I'm fairly ambitious, it means that sometimes an opportunity will come along week, and that happens more often than I know. So just 2 days ago, and sometimes I wonder then why now. Just 2 days ago, quite a high profile art gallery got in touch with me just on Saturday actually,
Mhm.
and said, Vanna,
Wow.
will you do our suhoor dinner on Wednesday,
Okay. Mhm.
after this, very fabulous show, then discussing budgets and menus. I was already had my own event this week, and now my own 10-day pop-up. So suddenly from Monday, my week has turned upside down, and I have to now prepare for this uh, this this private corporate event that's going to be on Wednesday night. So then I'm in the space of both, because doing corporate catering of that sort of more European style of fancy, where the first thing they ask me for is pictures of food, which I never agree with, but
Yes.
where everything has to look fancy
Wow.
and little and bitty
Yeah.
on plate
Yeah.
isn't initially I thought I would refuse to do that kind of thing, but I am now actually quite enjoying the challenge of taking my food and making it into pretty small food,
Mhm.
as kind of corporate food wants to look like. Um, so the joy of that challenge puts me back in the kitchen, because I always start off a recipe by making it, testing it myself, and then passing it on to my staff. So all I'm saying is, on the whole, I tend to want to be the last to leave the kitchen. we have a partnership with Dynamic Kitchens near Dubai Mall, and so we have a meal delivery service. So usually by the time I'm done and home is probably about 2 a.m. between 1
Oh,
and 2 a.m. on a typical day.
oh,
And then between after that time, I will also then set the schedule for the next day in terms of whoever's on a meal plan and whatever events. It coincides with me being a late bird anyway, which is why I tend to have a rule of being unreachable in the mornings.
right.
So by the time I then will then look to other admin things. I might have to prepare for my children for the next day. So by the time I've done all that, it quite often takes me to 3 or 4 a.m.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah.
Amazing. Good
So
stuff.
then I will, yes, and then I will usually leave my staff to if it's a meal plan, it's usually recipes that we've done and they know. But if it's something that's new, then I will get up earlier. So typically my day starts very much in my own space, in my own room, so that I can have the quiet time to think through my day, work on recipes or designs if I need to. The sort of thing that needs a little bit of quiet time, but isn't quite creative. I'm not great in the morning. So my typical day starts looking ahead.
Okay.
And then in the middle of the day, I have meetings both online and offline. I kind of set them in the middle of the day. And then as a rule, I tend to want to be home between 4 to 10 p.m. so that those are the time my children come
Right.
to school. And then at 10 p.m., I'll go back to my kitchen at that point. So between 4 to 10 is also, I stay to be home. My children are old, so they don't necessarily need me, but it's good to have the presence of the mother, and I also like to see them.
Mhm.
So I will have meetings in that time, but I am very much at home. But then I'll also use it to make new recipes if I need to in my home space, and then to also have people to come and see me at home and eat with me at home. And then I will go back into work mode from about 10 p.m.
Interesting.
And
Very
if we have,
interesting. Yes.
yeah. So it changes all. This week we're in Asakal Avenue from 7 to midnight. So this week from 4 p.m. I will be manning our food stall myself, as well as thinking and sourcing for our event coming up. And tomorrow will be a day where I'm doing the cooking, not my staff, but I'll be doing the cooking if it's a high profile event all day long.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hmm?
I have a fashion show coming up, which I know I have to. I'll be presenting 12 new designs, which is quite a big leap for my sourcing of fabrics. I have an assistant who's helping me with this, the lovely Asal. So trying to explain that I'm looking for fabric that's as special as what I'm trying to create is hard to brief somebody. It's that yes, okay. I know I said sustainable and sheer, but I want sustainable and sheer with a story. that kind of thing. So then
You are
she will go
so,
back and do some more research of fabric and
yeah.
come back again.
You just
Mm.
ooze of creativity and passion. It's so lovely talking to you. Now let's have fun, Nana. I'm going to just do a very quick rapid fire round. Yeah. So just whatever first
Yeah.
comes to your mind. Okay.
I lost you
What
there. Yeah.
What's your favorite
Say
happy?
it again.
What's your favorite happy space?
By far, cooking for people.
So your kitchen.
So, and especially serving.
Food. Okay.
No, not at all.
Got it.
Actually, not my kitchen. So my kitchen
Yes.
extends because we're often doing. So I find my happiest spaces, and I often do, is actually serving food and telling people what they're eating.
Yeah.
So when we do pop-ups or we do
Yes.
big events, that actual standing there and interacting with people
Interact with the people. Yes.
is very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Your
in
okay.
telling them about my food. Yes, it's very much my happy space. Yeah.
So
Mm.
your biggest fear. Now I know I used the word fearless when I introduced you, but I'm sure you must be having some
Oh, oh, is
your biggest fear.
well, my biggest fear is always myself and menopause mood swings, which I make a thing to talk about because women don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't know when I'm going to have one, and I might self-sabotage something that I really wanted. And it's your hormones at play. And I might have really needed on Wednesday to be completely creative, but I might wake up and just be under a dark cloud and go, I don't want to do this, and let
Right.
myself down. So my biggest fear is always myself.
Okay. A funny moment in your life?
Gosh, I have so many there. They go right back to throughout my career because I worked on several high profile things.
Mm-hmm.
I think which one to choose
Okay.
is what, but
Anything that comes to your mind?
I'll stick to when I first started cooking, and it's dropping people's birthday
Mm-hmm.
cake, which is just something that you make a cake, you don't drop it. But for some reason, when I first started Vegana and delivering a cake to somebody that I'd already dropped one of this person's cakes at home, but thankfully I had the spare one.
Oh
I
my
picked the
gosh.
spare one up, and in my nerves, I was taking it to them. I was already late because we had to decorate cake number two. I dropped cake number two as well. And it was my first week. I could just burst out crying initially. Then I looked at the guy's face and I looked at the mess and I started laughing, and he just looked at me like,
Oh, oh
good
yeah.
luck, lady. Yeah.
Okay, a tipping point or a moment of epiphany, that kind of comes to you when you say it's either a aha moment or I say it's like, oh, this is a time I want to do something different. What was that moment for you? What was that
My
different?
aha moment, my aha moment is what I call my win-win philosophy. That if I do something for somebody else, on the whole, it's probably doing something for myself. So if I make that as my brand philosophy, it's an aha moment, which is very much, say, where my Market Sold Sundays comes in. If I host a lot of people, actually bring something back to me. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. And so, what does wellness mean for you? I know we already have an essence of you about feeling well in terms of contributing to the environment, but we want to now kind of hear from you as well. So, what does wellness mean for you?
For me, I think nearly everything starts and ends with mental health wellness. Because if your mental health wellness isn't all right, you are not going to go and do all the things that you know you should be doing.
Yeah.
So when I say mental health wellness, I also mean even the ability to itself comes to. So for me, wellness very much how to protect your mental health wellness. But that also means what are you doing to fulfill your soul, to give yourself that positivity in your mental health. So being kind, good to the world, feeling I'm contributing is part of my wellness, because that gives me a drive to then want to make myself better in all sorts of ways, even healthier. Yeah.
Lovely, good. Any and what are your dreams? What is it more that you want to co-create? I know it comes on the flow, and you being in such a creative space, but I'm sure you
Yeah,
have
no,
some.
no, I very much have had a long-term plan for both my brands for a long time,
Okay.
and I'm very much on a fixed journey. I know exactly what I want, and create both a culinary institute and a fabric museum, and use them
Wow.
as ways to look on old methods of cooking, fabric production, and also teach. So I'm very much working on those projects now as well in Ghana. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. Really, truly beautiful. I'm just trying to soak everything in. Just talking with you has been so amazing. Any closing message
Thank you.
for our listeners? Any powerful message that you would want to give?
Well, I would say thank you so much for your podcast. Your listeners should probably please listen to more of your podcast, because anybody who finds me must be somebody that's curious and I believe very interested in making their podcast
Yeah.
but also reaching out. Message for your listeners is to stick with Shanaz. And the other thing is, if you have a dream and you're not sure about it, just start, because sometimes the idea doesn't become fully formed until you've actually started.
Yes. And when it's very interesting when you said, I actually wanted to connect with you almost a year and a half ago. I was so fascinated by your story. And with Purple Lotus, this is what typically happens. So when I'm in this space and you kind of recognize the space as well, as people just connect. And so this is exactly what Transformation Tales is all about. It's a space, it's a platform to bring amazing stories such as yourself, so that the others get inspired and they start taking the first step. It could be anything, to maybe start an entrepreneurial journey or anything to do with their wellness, their transformation. I always believe it's holistic. And all I can now say is thank you so much from my heart, Nana, for your incredible story and sharing your journey and your very different perspective with our audience. And I'm sure that this is not the last of the podcast. We're going to be talking to you more. We're going to be following your journey. And when your new ventures, your new dreams start blossoming and unfolding, we'll be there with you to share our world your story.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.